So from my perspective, I would encourage every college aspiring actuary to do as much computer science as they can. You're sort of, if you do the actuarial major, in a lot of ways, I think you're sort of forced to take enough of the statistics classes where you get a good grounding in statistics and probability theory and things like that. I personally think what's been the most helpful has been the computer science classes, because so much of what I do day to day uses, statistical programming languages such as R or, Python, things like that. And to me, that's given me, I think, a big leg up on a lot of others who didn't have as strong of a programming background. That makes it a lot harder to learn.
I don't think anything trumps on-the-job training. So I can't say that there's a lot of classes that I would have taken that were available to me at that time. But since then, data science and different programming languages have become a lot more popular. So I did go and take a 10-week course at a school down here in Atlanta that they were offering that taught, just an overview of what's going on in data science, just so I could have a better understanding, because it wasn't big when I was in college.
What I really liked about when I was a student was the opportunity, again, to network with a lot of professionals, taking classes that were certainly relevant to the actual field and insurance industry in general, getting a lot of that background of like, hey, what actually does insurance do? How does insurance operate? A lot of those were great resources to have available as a student. Certainly some things that I think are relevant today, and they were relevant back then, but I think even more so now, is if there's any opportunities to get technical skills. So this would be any programming type of language, just getting familiar with working with data and knowing like, how do I manipulate it to get it to fit the problem that I'm looking to analyze. I think that's a pretty key skill that I learned on the job, but I certainly nowadays, I think everyone's familiar with it. So having that opportunity in school, I think is great, especially having an academic setting and getting familiar with a variety of languages that a company might use it'd be a great opportunity.
I'm also thinking from personal experience now that we're talking about it. Like when I was in college, I knew I was very uncomfortable with public speaking. So I made it a point to take, it was called Communications 201. And I did not have to take it as a math and econ major. I did not have to take a communications class. And there were, lots of people that it was a requirement for. And they were like, why on earth would you choose to take this class? This class is hard and awful. And I just kind of thought, well, it's because I know I need it. So anything you can do to, decide to improve yourself in areas that you might need it, I think can be really useful. And I do think that class actually gave me some initial confidence that I didn't have just in terms of public speaking or, just report outs and things like that you do every day as a business person.
So I would say, as far as if you're not sure about the actual profession, see if there's some business courses that you can take that can at least fill you in on what is it like being in a business world, in a business setting. That's really going to help. Specifically on like the role of being an actuary, I would say any coding courses that you have available to you is going to be great, because technology is always improving, and I can see that as the role of an actuary, coding is going to always be a part of it. Rather it's coding in Excel, coding in VBA, coding in SAS, there's always some sort of a computer language. Computers is here to stay, and it's always going to keep enhancing and improving. And so you're going to need to be able to catch up to it. Kind of similar thing with like predictive analytics. That's kind of been this huge push where kind of the actual profession has been. So I expect coding would also be part of the predictive analytics side of things, is you be able to code so that you can do the analytics that you want. So coding is definitely one of the big courses that I would recommend.
what else I might give advice as far as coursework, back to what I was saying earlier, is there's so many aspects to this actuarial job. I had a math major and a minor in actuarial science, partly because that's all they offered at the time. Had I known what I know today, I would have taken more probably accounting, investment, business, just maybe even just general business type. So if you have those opportunities for electives, maybe you fill those in with those types of classes, because you use that so much as you get farther into your career.
The best advice I would give someone, and I think this is something that has hindered me and held me back, is probably communications. I would minor in communication if I was an actuarial student. If I went back to school today, I would have a minor in communication. There are two things I would do, two courses I would take every semester if I could go back. I would take a course in terms of gym related, in terms of workout related every semester, because you don't have to take them for a grade. You can take them for a pass or fail. And I would take a course related to communication. So I would minor in communication. I would take that course every single semester, because I think communication is probably the biggest thing in business. Like we spoke about relationships, and we spoke about, how your work has transitioned, but a lot of times the transition comes in terms of how you communicate. The people who really move up or are able to progress in their career the easiest, you will find that they're quote unquote natural communicators. But I don't know if I believe in anything in terms of being natural. I think they worked at it, or they've had a job when they were 16 where they were at the register, so they spoke a lot, or they were involved with their church or organization, and they tend to speak a lot with individuals, or they have, it comes to the point where they probably had some level of practice with it, with the communication. So I would practice my communication, and I think college is the best place to practice anything. And communication is very important. It's important in any career path that you take, and it's probably the most important in verbal and written. So if you can't take a communication course, I know a lot of time communication can be verbal in terms of the coursework. Then I would take maybe a written course in terms of English, and instead of just saying, okay, I'm gonna just get out of business writing, I would take that course a little bit more serious, and go up a little higher in the levels that are required in terms of business writing. I know a lot of times for technical careers, business, you maybe only have to take business writing 1, advanced business writing 1. If they have advanced business writing 3, I would take advanced business writing 1, 2, and 3.
The stuff I did that I really am glad I did is taking classes to help with the actuarial exams, as many of them as you can. Even if you can't sit for that exam that semester, to get that base knowledge is key, because otherwise you have to do it yourself. You have to learn it yourself.
I would say a programming class or course, even if it's basic introductory course, would be extremely helpful. For me, a knowledge of VBA coming in would have been extremely helpful.
Good question. So for making sure you do certain things, I would say, especially in school, there are so many opportunities, like no matter what school you're at, no matter what type, if it's liberal arts or if it's science focused, there's always so many different things that if you even have like the tiniest interest in ballroom dancing, there's probably a ballroom dancing class around. Like, this is the one time to explore those really small, maybe like random little interests you have that you just want to try one time and you never have to again if you don't want, and you can explore those things. So I would say, look at just all the classes offered to you, look at the city that you're in for the school, and look at what's available and pick a few things that are just new or you have been slightly interesting to you and try them, because I feel like when I talk to friends who signed up for the random dance class or even like a gym class in college or, things like that, they always ended up loving them. And it was just a nice break to have a class that was truly like only interest driven. It wasn't a requirement. It wasn't, as high of stress because of something that was really interesting. So whether it's a class or just like something outside of school, do it. Just sign up for it and say yes and go for it. So try something new because college is a perfect time for that.
Sure. I'd say having a good having good exposure to Excel is really important for my job. So to the extent that you can get into classes that require that, and I think I understand that might be a requirement today, but you won't know all the programs you're going to use at work until you start working. That just is what it is. But having comfort with a computer and Excel creates a baseline for a lot of the things out there. It's easy to translate from there. I know having a little bit of a coding background is also helpful. Again, if you go to work and you work in an area that has uses a different language completely, that still allows for you to come in with a baseline understanding of how logic works.